talofa to all of our viewers today. Special talofa to all of our Year 12 English students. I hope that you are all ready to learn something new. But before we can start, make sure that you turn off all those devices that may cause some sort of distraction during our lesson. Our lesson for today is Year 12 English Response to Literature. Strand 2, and we'll be focusing on reading and writing. Always remember, students, that this is one of the main writings during examination. Our key learning outcome will be focusing on demonstrating how to understand literature through analyzing a selected poem. So poetry is one of the 4 main types of literature that you will learn this year. You have poems, short stories, drama, and novel. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify what a poem is, identify poetic devices, explain themes, messages, and key social issues. And by the end of analyzing that poem, you will be able to apply that poem to everyday life. But before we can start on our chosen poem for today, we need to understand what poems are. Poems, they are an arrangement of words, written or spoken, traditionally has a rhythm. Sometimes they can rhyme. They are expressive. And they can also portray some sort of emotion. It can make you feel happy, sad, annoyed, scared. All those emotions are portrayed through poetry. Some have a certain pattern, and others are free verse. In every poem, there are things called stanzas. So stanzas, they are division of a poem consisting of 2 or more lines. They are arranged together as a unit. So in simple words, a stanza, they are lines of a poem that act as a paragraph. So in essays, we have paragraphs. In poetry, we have stanzas, a collection of lines. The poet, so some students, they mistaken the poet means the same as the poem. The poem is a piece of writing or the piece of literature that you will be reading and studying. But the poet is the person who wrote the poem. The persona, these are the main characters or main character mentioned in the poem. So always remember, when you are studying poetry, you need to know the name of the poem, the different stanzas within the poem, who wrote the poem or the poet, and finally, who are the main characters, who are the personas mentioned in the poem. On the board, we have 15 common poetic devices that you will see within poetry when you are studying different poems. So regardless of the poem that you study at school, these poetic devices, they make up those poems. So I'm sure you've come across some of these common poetic devices. First one is simile. A simile, it compares 2 different things using like or as. She is like her mother, as pretty as a flower. So simile is one method used within poems. In contrast, you have metaphors. Metaphors are figurative comparisons without the use of like or as. Personification, it explains something that is not human or non-human, and it gives it human characteristics. The tree was waving. Obviously, a tree does not have arms, or a tree is not a human. However, they use human characteristics to explain the movement of a tree. Adverbs and adjectives. This is one key device that a lot of poets use. Modifies the verbs for adverbs and modifies nouns for adjectives. Or explains how the action is done. Adverbs and adjective, it explains the noun. So always remember the difference between a verb and a noun. Verb is the action done by the subject of the sentence. For example, the boy is walking. The verb is, yes, walking. The adjective, it explains or modifies the noun. So in that sentence, the boy is walking, the noun is, yes, the boy. So adding in an adjective, the handsome boy. Yes, it's a good refresher, yes. Symbolism and imagery, these are one of the common poetic devices used within Year 12 or Year 13 poems. Symbolism is just a fancy word to say the use of symbols. Imagery, it means the use of different images. So if you understand the meaning of the word symbol, ole failonga in Samoan, and imagery or seata, so when you read a poem, you think about what are the symbols. Is there a symbol mentioned in the poem? Or is there a symbol that you can think of that is reflected from the poem? Imagery is very easy. It is a method that can expand your imagination when you are thinking about what is a picture. After reading this poem, what is a picture that you can paint or draw that is reflected or portrayed from that poem? Social issues. These are problems, mainly problems that impact many people. So always remember the difference between a social issue and a personal issue. So a personal issue is you having a problem with me. Social issues, these are problems that involve a lot of people, not only here in Samoa, but you can think about the Pacific and also globally. Can you think about one of those issues? Yes, that's right. Poverty. Poverty is not only found here in Samoa, but it's also found in other countries within our region, within the Pacific, and also globally overseas. Narrative. This poetic device, it gives us the insight of the poet. Where is the point of view of the poet? Is the poet part of the poem, included in the poem, first person, or is the poet viewing from outside? The poet is telling the story of someone else, third person. The setting is the location or country or place where the poem is written. Onomatopoeia is another device that is used in poems. Onomatopoeia, it imitates the noise or the meaning of the word by the way you say it. So for example, a snake. A snake hisses. So if you've heard a snake before, the sound that it makes, sss, it is explained in the word hisses. Repetition. Repetition is also a common device or technique used within poems. Repetition simply means repeating the word. And we should all understand any word that is repeated within a poem, it is emphasizing the importance of that word. So everything or every word that is written in the poem was not done unintentionally. It was done by purpose. And the last two, ansonance and alliteration, ansonance is the same vowel sound. So if you think about vowels, you are thinking about a, e, I, o, u, or a, e, I, o, u. So the sounds of those letters, if it is the first letter of each word within the same line, it shows the pattern of ansonance. And our last poetic device, we have alliteration. Alliteration is the same consonant sound. So normally it is at the beginning of each word, within the line, or between stanzas. So always remember, if you see the same consonants at the end of each line, or at the beginning of each line, or within a line, that is an example of alliteration. You've come across alliterations before, I'm sure, if you think about tongue twisters. For example, Peter Piper. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled pepper. The P, because it's a consonant, it is not included in A, E, I, O, U, P, so it is an example of alliteration. Our chosen poem for today, because I'm sure this is one of the common poems that is used in all of our schools, Father and Son. It's also one of my favorite poems when I was also in school. So the name or the title of the poem is Father and Son. The poet or the person who wrote this poem is Ruparake Petaya. Let's all read together. He comes home now, his mind filled with the wisdom of the Balangi. Your son has done well at school, and you are proud, and showed him off to friends for their congratulations. For you had wanted it all this way, but suddenly he speaks, and you do not want to hear him. He dresses, and you don't want to see him. He tries to explain himself, but you say he's just trying to be smart little cheek, who's had too much education. I wonder where in the darkness you lost each other, father and son. Let's read it one more time. Father and Son by Ruparake Petaya. He comes home now, his mind filled with the wisdom of the Babalangi. Your son has done well at school, and you are proud, and showed him off to friends for their congratulations. For you had wanted it all this way, but suddenly he speaks, and you don't want to hear him. He dresses, and you don't want to see him. He tries to explain himself, but you say he's just trying to be smart little cheek, who's had too much education. I wonder where in the darkness you lost each other, father and son. Okay, I'll give you a minute just to absorb all of that in and think deeply about the poem before we can discuss it together. Always remember, when we are discussing the poem, we'll go through lines and through stanzas. Remember, a line is a set of words going across. So this is one line, this is line 1. And if we're talking about stanzas, we are talking about how many lines within a sort of paragraph within a poem. So in Father and Son, there are 2 main stanzas. You have stanza 1. So this is stanza 1. And then you have the second stanza at the bottom, stanza 2. It is separated by the word but. But it gives us a contrast. So let's look at stanza number 1. He comes home now. The question is, where is he coming home from? If you've read Father and Son before, or if you've had a background information about Ruperake Betaya, you see within his collection Blue Rain. So Father and Son was extracted from the collection by Ruperake Betaya called Blue Rain. Just some key information for our students. Blue Rain, it was first published in 1980s. So around the 1980s, this is when the first collection, or the first edition of Blue Rain was published. And it was further edited throughout the 90s. He comes home now. So going back, he comes home now. This illustrates a boy that was educated overseas. So he's coming home from overseas studies. His mind filled with the wisdom of a Palani. So these 2 lines, line 2 and line 3, it illustrates that the son is educated or has come back with some sort of education. Or nowadays we know these people or these children, students that come from overseas after their studies with a qualification. So the son went overseas to study, and on his return with his qualification, the father assumes that his son is very, very intelligent or very smart. Your son has done well at school and you are proud. So you are proud. This indicates that in our Samoan society or within our families, we are sent to school in order to get an education, and we have a lot of people that are praying for us, or also known in Samoa as the Tapua Inga. Every student comes from a family that has a mother, father, or mother figure or father figure within a supported community. Everyone wants to be proud of our achievements. So on the son's return, and you are proud, this indicates that the father was initially very, very proud of his son that came back from overseas with a qualification. Showed him off to friends for their congratulations. So if you think about this, this is one of the practices within our families. When we achieve something, or when we succeed in different sorts of jobs or chores or sports, our families are very proud of us, and they love to tell everyone. They want people to congratulate us. They want people to know that we are doing well. So this is portrayed in these last 3 lines in the first stanza. And you are proud and showed him off to friends for their congratulations. For you had wanted it all this way. So the last line in the first stanza is very important. For you had wanted it all this way. We have the Samoan saying that Eleai masimatua e manao e faale tonu yal onalo. No parents wants their child to do badly in life or make wrong decisions. We all want our children to succeed. So that is the mindset behind the father, that he always wanted his son to do well in life. Finally he returns back. His father is very proud of him. So if you think about the overall feeling of the first stanza, the father is very proud, happy. Happy, proud, joyful. So it's a happy feeling. The father's very happy. His son has returned from overseas. And the feeling, the collective feeling, is celebration. Celebrate, everyone should know, and everyone should congratulate the father's son because he has returned back from overseas successfully. But, the key word here, but, it indicates that there is a contrast. So it's going to turn. The feeling is slightly going to turn because the father has realized things that are different. Suddenly he speaks. So we are changing into the second stanza where the feeling changes. Suddenly he speaks and you don't want to hear him. That means something is wrong. Something is totally wrong with what the son is saying or the way that he speaks. He dresses and you don't want to see him. So something has changed with the way that the son dresses. He tries to explain himself, but you say he's just trying to be smart little chick. So it also indicates that there is a clash, a mismatch between the father and his son. Who's had too much education? So if you think about the first stanza, the father was happy, he was proud, he wanted people to congratulate the son. But now it has changed. He is saying that his son has too much education. The last 4 lines in stanza 2, I wonder where in the darkness you lost each other, father and son. You lost each other. So the darkness, it talks about a darkness and how the father has lost his son. Obviously, when we think about the word loss, that means you had something, then you don't have it anymore. Darkness, is not literally talking about a darkness. The son and the father went somewhere and then suddenly the lights went off, darkness, they couldn't find each other. No, it doesn't mean darkness literally. It's talking about darkness metaphorically, that they do not understand each other. There is a mismatch because the son has came with different changes, the way he speaks and the way he dresses. Maybe the son no longer speaks Samoan, or maybe the son doesn't speak proper fa'aloalo. Maybe the way that the son speaks, he has that intention that he is better. The poem doesn't specifically talk about those different types of speaking, the way that the son speaks, but you can easily apply it to changes of the way that people speak. Dresses, maybe the son no longer wears a lava, or maybe the son no longer wears proper t-shirts. Maybe he's wearing singlets. So, like I said before, the poem doesn't specifically talk about these changes within clothes, but we can easily apply it to what we see in everyday life. The father and the son no longer know each other because the son has obviously changed. There are changes. And the father explains his son as being trying to be smart. So also known as us here in Samoa as fiapoko. He's no longer listening to his father, and the father doesn't want to hear the son's explanation. So it talks about a lot of mismatch and generation gap between the father and the son, understanding the changes. Of course, the son's going to come with changes. He just came from overseas. And also, it seems like the son has neglected his upbringing, or he totally forgot about how to speak and how to dress. Let's further unpack our poem by using the method of brainstorm. So get your piece of paper out and ready to write your brainstorm. Okay, let's look at our brainstorm. Hopefully that you have a piece of paper out. In no particular order, remember, brainstorm is a method that you can use to break down your ideas. So if you look at this summary model, so I call it the summary model, you can apply this method to any literature that you have studied at school, regardless if it's a poem, short story, novel. You can use this method. First, you need to do your brainstorm. Think about any key idea that comes to mind when and after you read the piece or the poem. Misunderstanding, yes, the misunderstanding between the father and the son. The changes, yes, we talked about the changes of the son when he returned home. The different styles, it is mentioned in the poem, of the clothes that the son was wearing. The respect, the level of respect or disrespect when the father and son misunderstood each other. Education is also mentioned, of the return of the son. The love of the father at the beginning of the poem when he just wanted to celebrate the achievements of his son, and it relates to the pride of the father and the family to congratulate the son on his arrival from overseas, the way that the son spoke or he speaks, the relationship between the father and the son, the darkness. That part is at the bottom of stanza 2. And influences. So if you think about influences, these are the different ways or styles or beliefs that you are exposed to, and then you change. So you are influenced by another experience. For example, the son, he was influenced by the way that people dress overseas, and on his return, his father did not like it. Okay, so after you have done your summary in your brainstorm, thinking about key words or key concepts, you choose at least 4 or 5 words and you put them in the theme column. So remember, when we are talking about literature, it is not the way that you recite, and it's not the way that you rote learn, memorize the piece of poetry. You always need to remember it is a way that you interpret or critically analyze the poem. Remember, your teachers or your parents have different experiences from you. As a child or as a student, you need to think carefully, how does this poem relate to you? Regardless if you have been overseas or if your whole entire education life was in Samoa, you can relate to father and son by thinking of education in general. When you come to school or when you go away from home, always remember the Tapua Inga, or your parents, your families, villages and churches are praying for you in order for you to succeed, with the hopes of you to succeed in life. So father and son, it can relate to everyone, every student, either you're a boy or a girl, thinking that the son is a student and the father is the parents, or it represents a family, villages, churches, and our community. So after you have took 4 concepts like I have done here, education, culture, respect, misunderstanding, then you think very hard about social issues that you can create or are caused due to education, culture, respect, and misunderstanding, in accordance to the poem. So education, it's a main theme within this poem because of the son he returned from overseas studies. So if you think about an issue, remember social issue is a problem that does not only occur here in Samoa, but also in our wider community, regional and globally. Causes misunderstanding between parents and children. Yes, education can cause, and it's an issue, a lot of students, when they return from overseas or from their studies, they assume that they are way better than their parents, or they assume that because I am now smart, I think I am better than everyone else. And it is an issue. Lefia poto, also commonly known here in Samoa. So if you think about how do we get the social issue, you done your brainstorm, you took a key concept from the brainstorm and you put it in the theme or concept, key concept column. And then you think about an issue that is caused by the concept that you have chosen. The message of the poem, you can get that by thinking about how to solve the social issue that you have presented. Remember the love of our parents. So that is one of the messages, and it is it relates back to the theme of education. Social issue, it causes misunderstanding. So how can I solve the misunderstanding between the parents and the children? Remember the love. Remember the Tapua Inga. Remember the people that prayed and ensured that you were safe. Maybe they gave you lunch money, they gave you a ride to school. Always remember those people that made sure that you would be successful in life. Another theme is culture. What is a social issue that is caused by culture? The changes and the influences. Every time we think about our culture, we always try to compare who is more culturally appropriate than who. And then all of a sudden, everyone is a culture expert, thinking that, well, I'm more culturally appropriate than my cousins who live overseas. So it becomes an issue, a social issue, because we assume other people living outside of Samoa, not living within the in-depths of our culture in Samoa, they are less culturally appropriate than us. This is me saying assumption. I'm not saying that we are. I'm saying that this is the assumption. So what is the message? Accept that changes are inevitable. This being said, changes and influences, they are going to happen. They are going to occur regardless either we are strong within our culture or tradition. There are going to be changes. But the way that we accept changes that are valid, again, that is our choice. Respect. Forget the love and prayers of our families. So yes, that is also an issue. So how would we solve that issue? We always need to remember, yes, remember the people who have supported you. And last but not the least, misunderstanding. So the issue is the generation gap. And we always hear this from our parents. Back in the days, we only took $1 to school. Back in the days, we used to walk to school. Back in the days, it was such a free life. So the generation gap, due to the lack of communication, most of us, we do not talk to our parents. Most of students, they don't have time to talk with their parents because they're too busy on the phone or too busy doing anything else besides communicating. So that is another message. You need to mend the relationship with your parents. How do you mend? Communicate. Make sure you have time to share with your parents your problems, share with your parents on how you're feeling, and also your long-term goals in life. Because, again, like father and son, the lack of communication can cause misunderstanding. And the misunderstanding is metaphorically explained within the poem as darkness. You don't want to be that person wandering around in the darkness because you do not have the communication skills or you do not have the close relationship with your parents. Again, like I said, poetry, it is the way that you analyze a poem and how it relates to you personally. It may not be the same as your interpretation in terms of experience, but father and son, this poem, it reflects how education can change for the good and it can also change for the worse. If you do not have the respect for your parents or if you do not have a close relationship with your parents. So always remember, students, father and son reminds us to remember our parents and to remember the people who are praying, our Tautua group and our Tatalo groups who are making sure that we succeed in life, because those people will always be there regardless if we succeed or if we fail in life. So hopefully that you have learned something good today and that you have learned something positive from father and son. Always remember to do well in school. Always remember that our parents are praying, our churches, our villages, for the better of Samoa. That's all we have time for today. So far, so good.